Nairobi, Kenya, the 1982 Marlborough Safari Rally. The greatest, the toughest motor rally in the world.
I would like a win this year. The only problem is another half a dozen people have the same idea.
Favourite and the number one in the seeding is Kenyan resident Sheikha Mehta, four-time winner and again driving a Datsun Violent GT, this time in brand new Marlborough livery. With their superior local knowledge, drivers from Africa have dominated the rally for 3 decades. Overseas entrants rarely cracking their solid mastery. Mehta's teammate is Mike Kirkland, also of Kenya, in a Datsun Sylvia, seeded second of the 73 entries. 2 minutes later, a third Nissan Works team entry driven by Timo Salonen of Finland joins the 4-day trek. Salonen finished fourth the previous year and is looking to improve upon that. Chief threat to Nissan's defence of the title are the Works Opals driven by Rauno Aaltonen from Finland and Walter Röhrl from Germany. The first Middle East driver ever to take part in the safari is Abdullah Omar of Dubai. He will be depending on the local knowledge of Kenyan co-driver Aziz Yaqub in their Marlborough-sponsored Datsun Sylvia. Ahead of Omar and all the others lay 5,000 of the most demanding kilometres on Earth, a marathon test of skill and endurance closely controlled by rally officials. The Marlborough Safari Rally is run each Easter weekend over a course in Kenya rimmed by Mount Kilimanjaro, Lake Victoria, Mount Kenya and the Indian Ocean. Stage 1 is launched from the mountain highlands of Nairobi and plummets through jungle and gameland to the sea. With only brief pauses for food and rest, it clambers back from equatorial Mombasa to regain the thin, chilled air of the Kenyan capital. Rallying is not about pure speed, it is about consistent speed. That average speed is set impossibly high for the terrain and the conditions, the obstacles and obstructions. It is a question of how near a driver can approach the impossible that determines the finish order. Drivers are assessed penalty points for arriving early or late at specified points along the route. A successful driver knows when to pour on the speed to gain time to balance the sections where he will lose it. Rallies are run over public roads, subject to public laws. Alone among racing drivers, the rally entrant considers speeding tickets a hazard of the course. Most rallies have special stages, flat-out sprints designed to tear the car to tatters. The Marlborough Safari Rally is a special stage from start to finish. Seeding for the 1982 Safari proved accurate on the first leg. Number 4, Aaltonen in his Opal held the lead on the run down to Mombasa, lost it for a while to Mehta, then regained it on the run back to Nairobi. Immediately behind him is number 1, Sheikha Mehta. Even the village dogs wander out to inspect the flying Datsuns. Tony Pond of England is among the leaders, throwing his car through the unfamiliar curves as well as anyone. His performance is enhanced by the fact that he is a rookie to this event. Timo Salonen, a star of the previous Marlborough Safari Rally, charged with all his skill and determination. But then braking problems on his Datsun caused him to fall back from the vanguard. Checkpoints scattered regularly along the course determine who is doing what and where. Cars can be eliminated for not arriving within a specified time. Speed average and performance are computed and penalties levied on the basis of the flying report cards.
How's it going?
So many problems.
Yeah? What are some of the problems?
Ran out of petrol just right now.
Petrol, yeah? How's the car running?
Okay.
Porsche is a name to reckon with in any type of motor racing, and Sandro Minari of Italy is out to revive the sagging fortunes of the make in recent rallies. Plumes of dry dust are the earthen contrails of much of the first leg, but overnight rainstorms leave enough mud to bog many drivers down. Walter Röhrl of Germany, leading the World Rally Championship, splashes through in his Opel. Mater, hovering near the lead, goes through the mud with determination, but also the realization that to win at rallying is to survive. It is the Finn, Aaltonen, first back to Nairobi, a happy beginning to his 19th safari. Second car on the ramp is the first seed. Shekhar Mehta set a record with his third consecutive safari crown a year earlier. He is well placed to improve upon that record. The second leg of the safari leaves the uplands of Nairobi and climbs even higher toward Lake Victoria. Its 1,600 kilometers make it slightly shorter than the first. Aaltonen in Opel number 4 and Nissan's number 1 Mater continue their battle, although they're not the only drivers out at Easter. Conditions on the second leg can change as quickly as a gear shift, and the constant danger of a surprise is nagging every co-driver navigating the route for his teammate. Kirkland is going well in number 2, his Datsun presenting a strong threat to the leading Opel. England's Tony Pond adds to the Nissan charge. For many, the rally is already history. Almost any mechanical repair is permitted and performed en route. On a dry year such as this, axles are shattered with regularity. Tires become tissue. What is lost is time, and time is what rallying is all about. Wish you good luck. The rugged Kenyan countryside is not suited to high-speed rally cars. Most people there have never even been in a car, but have supported the safari enthusiastically for 30 years. Seeing a car blast across a simple wooden bridge designed for carts, hooves and feet is part of the constant contrast in Kenya. Aaltonen drives crisply and quickly to maintain his lead, determined to score his first safari win. Mater is no less precise in his driving, nor less ardent in his search for another victory. At the end, it is the home team, Meta motoring to the leader's stand at the finish of the exhausting second leg.
Hi, Shu. Welcome back.
Thanks, Asher.
Tough going?
Chirangani's was very difficult.
Yeah.
And the Kipkorian section, oh my God. That was rough as hell.
Sure.
It was unbelievable.
All well?
rough. Yeah, everything okay.
Superb, very good.
But we didn't expect our axle to last through Kipkorian.
Yeah. Well.
We discussed it and we said we're going to break, but let's see how many we can take with us.
Yes. More like that.
The third and final leg of the Marlborough Safari Rally circles Mount Kenya, the highest peak in Kenya. Meta, Pond and Rural make much of the running on the third leg. The experienced Kenyan and the German world champion were expected to be at the front, but newcomer Pond is a huge surprise. Fellow rookie Abdullah Omar is still gamely competing. He was to lose a promising 17th place when East Africa proved tougher than his car. Omar was in a large majority. More than two-thirds of the entries never saw the finish line. Only 21 of the 73 cars were able to complete all three stages. Near the end of 5,000 destructive kilometers, farther than London to Moscow or New York to San Francisco, the remaining drivers are still going flat out. Cruising with time well in hand is Shekhar Mehta, within sight of a phenomenal fourth consecutive triumph in the world's toughest rally. The driving performance of the rally is that of Rob Collins in what was considered an uncompetitive Kenyan-built Range Rover. Jubilation mounted in Nairobi as the cars neared. European drivers had begun to win regularly 10 years earlier after 2 decades of frustration. Then Mehta slammed the door on them and again made the Marlborough Safari Rally an annual victory for Kenya. Mehta and co-driver Mike Doughty had suffered an incredible array of mechanical problems, yet persevered. An axle lasts a normal car a lifetime. The winning car went through 7 in 4 days. 7 axles, 7 lifetimes. Ever correct, Mehta uses his turn indicator to signal his entry to victory lane. Mehta has his 4th consecutive win and his 5th in the last 10 years. No other driver has ever been so dominant in a World Championship rally.
As in all other motorsports, the Ivory Coast Rally is about winning and losing. More than any other rally, it is also about surviving. In an average year, only 1 out of 10 cars will be running at the end of the 5,000 punishing kilometers through the West African jungle. The 1982 event was to prove no exception to that rule. The Ivory Coast sits just above the equator on Africa's western horn and offers some of the most brutal racing conditions imaginable in the 12-race worldwide competition for the Rallying World Championship. A 51-car field for the 14th annual Ivory Coast Rally was led by the turbocharged Renault of France's Jean Ragnotti, both car and driver making their debut in African road racing. Focus of most attention was on Michel Mouton of France, the driving sensation of the year and a star of the first magnitude. For the first time in the history of any of motorsport's world championships, a woman was in full contention for the title. She had already won 3 rallies during the year in her turbocharged four-wheel drive Audi Quattro in Portugal, Greece, and Brazil, and her car number 2 was highly favored, although it was her initial campaign in Africa. Another pre-race favorite was car number 3, the Toyota Celica of Sweden's Bjorn Waldegard, a career winner of 11 events. Germany's Walter Rorrell, world champion 2 years earlier, was again leading the season standings and in position to capture the title if he could beat Michel Mouton. He needed a first or second to sew up the championship for his Opel Ascona. Hannu Mikkola of Finland shares with Waldegard the record number of 11 rally victories. A previous winner at the Ivory Coast in 1979, his mission was to boost teammate Mouton to the championship. In effect, Mikkola's Audi would be a high-speed backup car, tracking the championship contender for emergency repairs. Per Eklund of Sweden was another entrant in the strong Toyota team. The lone Lancia entered was entrusted to Italy's Enrico Budifieri, the 1980 European Rally champion driving in Africa for the first time. A second turbocharged Renault 5 was also making its initial appearance on African dirt tracks in the hands of Bruno Savi. The French team had months of local practice behind it in a program to adapt the turbo engines to the tropical climate. One entrant with no need for adapting to the equatorial roads and trails was Samir Assef, a native of the Ivory Coast and twice a high finisher in the rally. Assef was a valuable reinforcement to the favored Toyota team. First leg of the rally began on the Atlantic coast in Abidjan and ended after 1,257 kilometers, only 69 of them paved, in Yamoussoukro. Yamoussoukro, home of the nation's president, was to be the center of most of the rally's activity. More than half the event was run at night to avoid the wild animals that are the normal traffic on the remote dirt roads that host most of the rally's 4 stages. Rally running is an exercise against the elements and against the clock. An average speed is set between 2 checkpoints, and the teams hew as closely as possible to that theoretical pace. Penalties are assessed for arriving too early, or, much more commonly, too late. Michel Mouton's co-driver, Fabrizio Pons of Italy, checks in at one of the 57 control points mandated during the course. Terrain and weather dictate the average speeds set by the organizers, and in the Ivory Coast Rally, they varied from an average of 43 kilometers an hour to 145. The 1982 event lived up to its harsh reputation right from the start, with even the leaders collecting heavy penalty times by the first control stations. Rallying is fully organized under the guidelines of FISA, governing body for all of the world's major driving championships, and campaigned around the globe wherever the topography seems too tough to traverse. In theory, one is to drive a specified distance in a specified amount of time. In practice, it is impossible. Winning is being as close to the impossible as automotive engineering, human skill, and the laws of nature allow. A car and team are monitored constantly at the control points, the standings based upon how far a team has strayed from the established speed. Michel Mouton, needing a victory to carry the championship back to France, wasted no time in going for the laurels. She opened an early lead in the first leg and began to build upon it at every control point through the low inland hills surrounding Yamoussoukro. Mouton's only competition appeared to be the Ivory Coast itself, no one making a dent in her runaway lead. Yet she was aware of the terrible attrition that claims 9 out of 10 cars in the West African event. Just 10 years earlier, the Ivory Coast Rally achieved a dubious distinction. 45 cars started, none finished. Every extra kilometer of speed adds to the risk of wrecking the car, but speed, along with stamina, is a good part of what victory requires. Mouton, as all other entrants, was seeking the right balance between pace and durability. Ragnotti and Renault were the main challenges to Mouton in the early going, and the crowd swelled along the route as the stage continued into its first daylight running. Sweden's Per Eklund was making the best run for the favored Toyota team, while countryman and teammate Valgaard was close behind. Championship leader Rorrell, always within sight of his second rally crown, drove a steady, carefully judged race. Nicola continued to follow his teammate to be on hand if needed. The natural hazards of the Ivory Coast took their heaviest toll on the first leg. Of the 51 cars that started the night before, only 16 were still running at the end of the first day, and 5 of those straggled in after the official closing of the stage. With the bulk of the running still ahead, the field had been drastically slimmed, a normal condition for what might be the toughest rally of all. Mouton finished the initial stage 1 hour and 10 minutes amiss of the established time, but well in advance of, in order, teammate Nicola, her main competitor Rorrell, and the early pacesetter Ragnotti. All the top placings were held by factory teams, testimony to the backup crews of mechanics and wealth of spare parts. If necessary, most of the factory teams could assemble a complete new car from the spare parts, and it was often necessary. The second leg, Yamoussoukro to Odion and back, 1,370 kilometers. Michel Mouton was challenging the dictum that no one wins their first African rally. The four-wheel drive Quattro, designed with rallying in mind, had an apparent edge in traction and handling over the normal two-wheel drive machines. Yet ahead of her on the second stage lay a corrugated landscape just waiting to tear a car apart, regardless of how many wheels were putting down the power. The second stage began at 2 in the morning, heading through the night toward the northwest corner of the country. Nicola followed his team leader, always ready to help. Rorrell was having trouble with the shock absorber, costing him precious penalty time. Ragnotti would soon be out with a broken steering column, snapped as he landed badly from a jump. There is a persistent myth that the car tearing around a rally circuit is the same as one available at the local car dealership. Outwardly, they are identical, but inside they are all racing machines. Anything not essential to pure speed is eliminated. Anything not resistant to breakdown is replaced. To the consternation of Walter Rorrell at one control point, a non-essential component appeared to be his starter. Willing hands gave him a push, and he was off again in pursuit of Mademoiselle Mouton. The race leader led the survivors through some of the lushest country on earth. The Ivory Coast produces more cacao, the basis of chocolate and cocoa, than any other country in the world, and is a leader in the production of yams, coffee, and palm products, most of which are exported to Europe and the United States. The imported cars and rally teams were the center of West African attention at the end of October, and the drivers had no time for anything but the road immediately ahead. Mouton opened an awesome lead in the second leg, almost an hour ahead of Rorrell and 2 hours in advance of anyone else as they returned to Yamoussoukro. Rorrell was now in second place, good enough to seal his championship if he held it through the final 2 stages. Eklund and his Toyota were third, more than an hour behind the German in penalty time. Sabi was 2 places back in the lone remaining Renault. Third and longest leg of the rally, 1,713 kilometers, is traditionally the make-or-break point of the contest. It is an exercise in flat-out driving over tricky jungle paths. Only 11 cars were still in the running, with Mouton still leading and the more experienced Rorrell pressing her and hoping for a mistake. As everyone else, Mouton was having her share of mechanical problems, and her crew had to be prepared to repair anything, anywhere, at any time. The lady driver expressed her satisfaction with the first 2 stages of the rally.
It was going well because we have one hour in front, so we changed only by security, we changed only the rear differential, but now it's everything okay, except now we changed the water cooler.
She also voiced her happiness with the Audi Quattro.
Oh, the car, no problem at all, you know. It's still very long, but for the moment the car is okay.
Optimism is a rare quality in a rally driver, and Michel Mouton's proved to be premature. Her German mechanics were rebuilding the car from the inside out, and very little remained of the components she had left Abidjan with. The third leg was a severe trial for the leader, the Audi losing an hour to the competition as Mouton drove 80 kilometers with a broken drive shaft. She continued to hold a slim lead over Rorrell, followed by Eklund, Voldegaard, and Sabi. In spite of repeated mechanical failures, all 11 third-stage starters made it through the beautiful Thai forest and to the end of the leg. The fourth and final leg was a relatively simple 661-kilometer dash from upcountry in Yamoussoukro back to the capital of Abidjan. Everything went right for Rorrell on the fourth leg, and everything went wrong for Mouton. The German was suddenly in the lead when Mouton overturned her car only 18 kilometers into the final leg. Her challenge for the rally and the World Championship had turned upside down. Rorrell had no competition as he drove into Abidjan and into the record books with a victory in a race he candidly disliked. The world champion labeled the Ivory Coast contest the roughest on the calendar and competed only to protect his title hopes. The 1982 World Rally Driving Champion and co-driver Christian Giesdorfer had taken the crown the way it should be won, with a convincing victory. It was a triumph of tactics, technology, and experience. Rorrell had raced the equivalent of twice around the globe in becoming the first to ever win the rally driving title twice. He knew it would be just as punishing to defend it the following season, and there would always be a lady in waiting.
Kenya is the cradle of civilization. It can also be the end of championship ambitions for rally drivers without extraordinary endurance and tenacity. The Marlborough Safari Rally